Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today, we're talking revenge. You guys, we are picking up on chapter 37, and we're going to be covering 38 and 39 in this episode. So get ready because there's lots of crap to talk about in this one. Woo, we're going to get into the Oprah interview of it all. Before I do want to shout out my Patreon. Check out patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps. That's where I'm doing breakdowns of a lot of stuff. I do a lot of Sex and the City recaps over there, but also I've been doing Harold and Fraud. I've been doing Harry and Meghan stuff, so check that out. Been having a lot of fun. I can kind of be a little more unfiltered over there, so I am. And we've been doing things like watching the South Park episode together, stuff like that. So check that out. I will be shouting out my executive producers later in the episode, and if you're like, hey Jen, what's that? Well, it's a level of Patreon that you can join, and I'll give you a shout out as well. So check that out, and a big thank you to my executive producers. Okay, without further ado, let's get into Ready? Revenge! Guys, we're about to get into courtiers, so I think I'll be saying courtiers like that when we get into courtiers. Okay. See, it's addictive, right? Courtiers. Okay. Revenge. So we pick up on chapter 37, Netflix. So this is March of 2021, and we're talking the Friday before the big ol' Oprah interview that airs that Sunday. There's a clip that comes out of Meghan's promotion for the interview, and there's a voiceover that says, banned by the palace from giving an interview 2018. Well, yes and no. I mean, she was about to get married. She wasn't even married yet. And remember, she actually told Oprah, now's not the time. Don't worry, we'll get into it. Basically, like, don't worry, I got a plan for all this. Your part's coming, don't worry. Harry and Plotter knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to have the last word on the rift with the royal family. They needed to paint themselves as victims for the whole wide world, and this was just the stage to do it, and Oprah was just the one to help them do it. So there were lots of promotions leading up to this thing. I remember it. I remember sitting down that Sunday night and watching it and thinking, oh my God, the whole time I watched it. You guys, we've been going through this interview on Patreon, and it is even worse than I remembered, and I didn't think that was possible. Let's get into chapter 38, the interview. So the interview with Oprah airs March 7th, 2021. I love me some Tom Bower, so I have to give him credit here. He points out Meghan trying to look, quote, harmless and playing into her victimhood, especially outlining her eyes. I don't know what look she was going for, but all I can think of is, oh, this is the bird shit dress. This is the dress that looks like a bird took a dump all over it. That's the look she was going for? Okay. This is where, so much infuriating things happen. This is where the racism claims are coming out, that they label the British press racist. This is the narrative that they were all pushing, even though Harry will eventually turn around and say, no, we didn't. We didn't do that. The press did that. There are so many them talking over themselves, talking in circles, blatant lies, things that have come out since this interview. It just makes my head spin. I want to do a separate video on that. But just at the base level, some of the things that came out, this is where they start to claim that the media created a false narrative, this whole privacy thing. They say, no, that's a false narrative created by the media. But they seem to have forgotten their suit all about privacy against the Mail on Sunday. See how nothing they say makes any sense? They even conflicted themselves when discussing Meghan's self-harm thoughts. They were conflicting stories within the same interview about how long it happened, when it happened, that sort of thing. Harry's talked about getting 7 years of help with like therapy and stuff, and yet he was unable to get his wife any help. We've been through that. They talk about it here. No, they don't talk about it here, and that's why it makes me crazy. It was just so frustrating because as any of us with half a brain realized, this was not real journalism. These were not real stories. This was not the truth. And when contradicting themselves, they were not questioned on any of it. It was just a paycheck for Oprah, who sold The rights to this, they talk about, Tom Bauer goes into it, the rights made so much money for Oprah and et cetera and CBS based on this. So why would Oprah want to poke holes in any of this, right? It's not in her best interest to. So she just threw these softball questions that, according to Bauer, Meghan sounds like she probably knew what was going to, of course she knew what was going to be asked and was able to prepare answers and have a script ready to go. They bring up the whole, I've talked about it so much, but the bridesmaid dress thing and who made who cry. Of course, Meghan jumps on the opportunity to be a victim and says, no, the reverse happened. Kate made me cry. She owned it. She apologized. I mean, can you imagine? Imagine being Catherine, who's put up with all this crap from Meghan, and then there's this. Meghan gets to go paint herself as a victim. Imagine being one of the staff that having been bullied by Meghan and Harry, and you have to hear this crap, how they're painting themselves as these victims. Ugh, it is disgusting, right? Absolutely disgusting. But Meghan, of course, has to be the victim and says she remains silent to protect Kate. Bullshit. When has she ever remained silent, and when has she had any interest in anybody but herself? She claims during this interview that she left the house 2 times in 4 months during the last part of her pregnancy with Archie. She seems to have forgotten, no, you took 2 private trips to New York, once for her baby shower and once to watch Serena play tennis, and 4 different holidays in Europe. But then she said she couldn't meet her friends for lunch. Tom Bauer shows evidence that she had very much a social life, not only in London, but she would also go to trips to a country house. So, recollections may vary there, huh? God, you guys. I respect the Queen so much. Can you imagine? She was dealing with so much, the Queen, and then having to deal with these 2 a-holes. So she throws out this thing about 3 days before our wedding, the Archbishop of Canterbury married us. Well, we know this. That's bullshit. British law doesn't work like that. Meghan didn't know this when she said it. She thought that she could get away with it because that's something you can do in America, and not realizing, oh, no, that doesn't make any sense. But again, Oprah doesn't question it. Nobody we question it, but I'm saying Oprah doesn't question it. No journalists question it. They just go along with whatever lies she feels like telling. She gets into the Archie skin color of it all. We've heard this a million times, so I'm kind of breezing over it, but it's just so infuriating to hear back. She's absolutely race-baiting here, saying that Archie would, quote, not be titled the same way the other grandchildren would be. Okay. Meg knew that her argument, she knew that she was telling lies. She knew that her argument was inaccurate because George V in 1917 dictated that Archie would not become prince until Charles was crowned king. So she knows this, Harry knows this, but yet nobody fact checks anything. She just says whatever, and Harry just goes along with it, and these 2 lie about everything, and the journalist that's supposed to be leading the interview is just going right along with it too. Why do any fact-checking or discrediting when you're all making money off this? The interesting part about the skin color conversation is they even contradict themselves as to when it happened. Meghan is describing it as having happened during her pregnancy. When Harry discussed it, he talked about it happening before they were even engaged. So they can't even make up their minds on when any of this supposedly happened. They cannot keep their stories straight for shit. And I get mad, and you can hear it in my voice because, these 2. How anybody can believe anything out of their mouths at this point is so far beyond me. But going back to that title thing, remember? He's not going to be titled the same way the other grandchildren would be based on his skin color. No. I already talked about, that's a thing from 1917. But I'd also like to remind you that she previously announced she didn't want Archie to have a title. They were offered one. She said, no, thank you. Actually, that's too polite. She probably said F no and F you. So she said no, she doesn't want a title, but now that's not what happened. Now it's he wouldn't be given a title. She's race baiting. We all know what she's doing. We can see right through it, and it's disgusting. So her assertion was because her son would be brown, they were changing the convention to everything. Again, not what's happening at all. They never did identify who the, quote, they was, and they didn't explain how convention would be abandoned. They just say these things with absolutely nothing to back it up, and people just buy a hook, line, and sinker. But Oprah, again, didn't question anything, so I hold her to the same standard. She's hosting this thing. Probably should have done some homework on this. But it seems to behoove her not to poke holes in this because, again, she's making money on all this, too. Goodness. Let's see here. Harry went into how Diana's like Meghan. Ugh. That guy has some serious issues. Point you back to Spare for that. Tom Bauer goes into how a lot of Americans, I take exception to this, fell for it. But I'm saying, nah, if you're on this page, you probably realize, like I did, nah, she's full of shit. But a lot of the media bought it and decided to accuse the palace of racism. Now, again, I bring you to not that long ago. Harry's like, no, we never accused them of that. What are you talking about? All right, let's take a breath. Meghan's supporters blindly followed her inaccuracies and contradictions in the interview. Again, I want to make a video on this, so that's on my to-do list. Their lies were almost psychotic. That's what Thomas Markle says. And calls for their titles to be stripped started coming after this interview came out. This is where the statement, recollections may vary, came from. I love the Queen so much. They were very, very nice. The palace was, and I would say the Queen was, in responding to these two after this. And they politely said, recollections may vary. We still love Harry and Meghan. That is so much more gracious than anything I'd come out with. I can think about 32 cuss words I'd like to add into that statement, but the Queen's a better person than me. Lapdog Omid Scobie says that, the palace didn't take full ownership, so how could they possibly move forward? Of course they're not. You idiot. It's because Harry and Meghan are lying. Harold and Fraud are lying. So, of course they're not going to own it. God. Piers Morgan was sickened by this 2-hour trash-a-thon of the British royal family. He was publicly outspoken and talking about not believing Meghan. Sorry, when I get mad, my Southern comes out. They're not believing Meghan. There's a division. Some people saw Meghan as, I guess Harry and Meghan, as the villains who lied about the royal family, but then others saw her especially as, quote, courageous. I don't understand that. I don't understand watching this and the contradictions. Even if you didn't realize at the time, knowing now all the contradictions that have come out, how do you follow these two? That I'll never understand. I'm looking at you, Sugars. Make it make sense. Tom Bauer brings up an excellent question about, does a self-proclaimed victim have the right to not have truths questioned? Because that seems to be where a lot of society, I wouldn't even say a lot of society, I guess outspoken people on social media seem to lay. If you feel like the victim and you self-proclaim it, then you should not have your truths questioned. Because then that makes you, I don't know, whatever ist you want to apply to that. So then we go into chapter 39, Backlash. I love it. After the Oprah interview, Charles took on this whole, quote, heal and mend philosophy to try to keep from having an estrangement with Harry and Meghan. William ended up calling Harry right after the interview. Funny enough, somehow Gayle King seemed to know all about this private phone call, including the details of it, and even called it, quote, not productive, saying that the call was not productive. So interesting. Somebody who hates the media so much, Harry and Meghan, they sure don't mind leaking parts of whatever benefits them to the media. I don't think it was William that called up Gayle King. Who had such a relationship with her? Oh yeah, it was Harry and Meghan. So they were convinced that America would love them and they wouldn't need the palace. And you can hear the glee in my voice because knowing how things have worked out since all this makes me laugh because they guessed that completely wrong. So CNN was working on a report showing all the inaccuracies in the Oprah interview. And according to Tom Bauer, Maggie Poo found out about it and requested that they pull the story. So they did. I hate the media so much. I sound like Harry, but I do. They're awful. Doesn't matter which side you fall on. They're all awful, right? Just disgusting to hear. So during this time, they registered Archwell Audio, Archwell Productions, all these things in Delaware. We've talked about that before. A lot easier to not show certain paperwork when you do that. Just saying. Harry was aligning himself with these companies that preached ethics. Again, I find that very funny. They even go into online ethics and get into, quote, ethical investing, all about ethics, from the two that cannot tell one single detail that is not a lie. They can't keep a single lie straight, right? They can't, nothing is true with these two, and yet they're going to get into ethics. It was during this time, unfortunately, that Prince Philip passed away. Meghan cited being 7 months pregnant as a reason for not traveling. I'm sure the royal family was like, phew. There's even a report, according to Bauer, that the Queen told a trusted aide, thank goodness Meghan isn't coming. I hope that's true. I love the Queen, and I love her sense of humor, and I think that's fabulous if she actually said that. William and Harry were remaining separated. They made sure of that. They didn't want them to have it out at this funeral. But there was a time, they refer back to when Catherine did a maneuver to try to engineer a conversation between the brothers. Sounds like it didn't go great. Harry had no interest in reconciliation. Sounds familiar, right? That seems to be what Meghan was doing with that letter as well. Just, let's get it on paper, but let's not actually have any interest in reconciliation whatsoever. All right, so May 14th rolls around. Harry had put out this, and I totally forgot about this. I want to do some more research into this. The Me You Can't See. Did anybody watch this? Apparently it was with Apple TV, they said. And it was like I don't know. I don't know what you want to call this. It sounds like it was like a platitudes and therapy and all. Yeah. Sounds like another platform for Harry to preach to us too. How about that? So apparently on this thing, according to Tom Bauer, and I need to go watch this thing. Apparently Harry denounced William and Charles. He criticized the Queen. And according to Bauer, said that they're all villains that he blamed for cycles of suffering. He is such a lovely guy, right? Such a nice guy, very appreciative of everything he's, received. God, he's really the worst. It just, again, not remembering that detail, it just tells me again, like, look how patient Charles especially and William have been with Harry through all this, right? Continuing to be nice and invite him to coronation and stuff, even though he's repeatedly jabbed the royal family. It's really wild at this point. It was during this that he continued to blame the family for Meghan feeling those dark thoughts that we talk about. And again, I say, why is it their fault? It's not. I don't believe her. There, I'm saying it. I don't believe her. But even if I did, why can't she take responsibility for this in terms of going to get herself help? Or if she can't do it, why can't Harry step up and help her? Having, again, discussed 7 years of therapy for himself. Why is it the family's fault? You get what I'm saying? He used things like, he said, quote, he was felt bullied into silence. He called it, quote, total neglect. What are we talking about? Okay, so soon after this, Lilybeth was born. And apparently, I guess 2 days or 4 days, I forget what he said, before she was born, they registered the website lilybethdiana.com. After Lilybeth was born, Harry called the Queen to let her know, hey, baby's here, we named it Lilybeth. Bauer basically explains this was his way to try to stay in good with the Queen, but then it comes up that he was telling the Queen rather than asking the Queen. Well, BBC reported on this very thing, and what did they do? They threatened to sue. Well, guess what? You can't sue when it's the truth, because they ended up having to back off of that lawsuit. Apparently there was some sort of proof, something like that they did not call to ask the Queen's permission. They told her, hey, we named it Lilybeth. Can you imagine? Again, bashing her, bashing the family, bashing her, and then saying, but guess what? We named our baby after you. See, we're still good. We're still good, right? You're not cutting us off, right? Oh, God, I even danced over that. At one point, going back to the Oprah interview, at one point during the interview, he claims that his father had completely cut him off before they left for California. Well, that's another thing that was found not to be true. Somebody went over Charles's finances and found that he had given over $1 million to the Sussexes since they left for California. Or after they came to California. So again, another thing that, recollections may vary. You fucking liars, right? Just another thing that they're lying about. They can't tell the truth on anything, ever. It is interesting because they said during this time, it was starting to show that the monarchy's enduring strength was more appealing to people, and that William and Catherine were becoming more popular and shining where the Sussexes were falling in popularity. Also during this time, they unveiled that statue of Diana. They invited both brothers to unveil the statue. William was very hesitant to go, but he did end up going. Pretty much everybody else stayed away, it sounds like. Harry's destiny was built on undermining the Windsors, so he tried to do that anywhere he could. He knew that he needed to, he just didn't care about anybody, right? He just cared about making money and spreading whatever the hell he's trying to spread around. July 2021 rolls around. The Mail on Sunday is asking Knopf for a statement. Knopf is forwarding an exchange of emails between him and Harry and Meghan. Basically, what it boils down to is the palace was ready to talk. These bullying claims were still out there, and they were revealing that, Knopf was involved in helping write the letter to her father, and that Scobie was given a copy of the letter to her father for finding freedom, that her friend got a copy of the letter and stuff. Again, just undermining all of her. I think everybody's just sick of it. So they're like, no, we're going to tell the truth. Here's the truth. Tom Bauer calls it a challenge to Meg's truthfulness. And I'd say, I don't think she's capable of truthfulness. It sounds like nothing they do is truthful at all. But again, these allegations of bullying were not going away. And according to Bauer, the quote is, it was essential to them for the report not to be published. Of course it is. I'm dying for that thing to be published. What do we got to do? Who do we got to let out of their NDA for that thing to be published? And that is how that chapter ends. So we get into chapter 40. I think there's 40 minutes left of this book. So we're going to finish it up in the next episode. And then we'll move on to courtiers. I don't think I said that right. Courtiers, right? I'm trying to be elegant in the way I say courtiers. So that's it for me. I want to give a huge shout out. Thank you to everybody who's jumped on Patreon. I really appreciate that. I want to shout out my executive producers. You guys are amazing. Thanks for helping to support the show. And if you want to become an executive producer and you want your shout out, well, check out patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps. Huge thank you to Kristen, to Linda, Melissa, Paige, Teresa, Mary, Amy, Mr. K, Shauna, Brenda. Huge thank you, Aaron and Frank, Kristen, Ann M, Amanda, Ann H, Karen, Corey, K King, Glennis, Sugar Hiccup, Karen, and Dewey. You guys mean the whole wide world to me. I can't do it without you. Thank you for all the love and support. And everybody watching, thank you so much. I do still have merch available, so check it out. I'll put the link somewhere in the comments. But recollections may vary. Perfect for right now, right? And this is a load of pants and Hank and Skank. All kinds of stuff. So check that out. Make it make sense. Check that out. And thank you guys all for the love and support. I'm so glad you're here, and I couldn't do this without you. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.